I can set a full supper on this table right now out of about nothing. A little flour, a little grease, a cup of water. That's gravy. A cold biscuit under it, and a man's fed. I've done it more times than I can count. There was a stretch of years where it wasn't a trick. It was just Thursday. The people who raised me came up hard, and then the whole country came down to meet them. By 1929, a quarter of the men in this country had no work, and up in these hollers, there wasn't much work to lose in the first place. What there was a garden, a hog if you were lucky, a creek, and a grandmother who knew how to make 5 people believe they'd eaten. Here's the twist. One of these meals kept a family from a disease that was killing thousands a year, and the government made it cost a nickel. Another one? You had to cook it right or it'd put you in the ground, and they ate it anyway. And the very last one old hen fed 9 people, and nobody left the table hungry. Let's count down 25 forgotten Depression meals Appalachian grandmothers made from nothing. Before we get into it, hit subscribe if you want more of this kept alive, and stick with me to the end, because the last one on this list is the one that stretched furthest of all. I want you all the way through this. 25. Fried potatoes and onions. Everybody's grandmother made this, and it was supper as often as it was a side. Thin sliced potatoes, skin on, onion right in with them, into a skillet already smoking with grease. The trick is patience. Crowd the pan and stir it, and you get a gray, steamed mess. Leave it be, and you get a brown crust, and that crust is the whole meal. Salt going in, not after, so it draws moisture and the outside crisps. A nickel of potatoes and half an onion fed the young'uns. If there was a single egg in the house, it went on top, cut 5 ways. 24. Tomato gravy over biscuits. Come winter, the fresh was gone, but there were jars. A spoon of grease, a spoon of flour browned till it smelled like toast, then a quart of home-canned tomatoes poured in, juice and all. It thickened into a sweet, sharp red gravy over a split biscuit. No meat needed. The flour and fat carried the tomato. Rush the flour and it tastes raw and pasty. You don't walk away from that skillet. 23. Milk toast. Torn bread, hot milk poured over it, a little butter, a little salt or sugar. That was it. At the lunch counters, they called it graveyard stew, because it's what you fed somebody too poorly to chew. But it filled a child up warm and full gets you through a night. 22. The poor man's sandwich. 2 pieces of bread and whatever was between them. Some nights just a thin sliced raw onion, salt, and a scrape of grease. They called it a wish sandwich. You held 2 slices of bread and wished there was something in the middle. It wasn't noble, it was hunger. But a mountain woman could rub bacon grease inside a cold biscuit, press a little sugar in, and hand it to a boy going to school, and that boy thought he had something. 21. Salmon patties. A can of salmon cost about a nickel back then because the government had dropped the price on purpose. Mash the whole can, bones and all, in a few crushed crackers and 1 egg. Fry the patties in grease. That 1 egg and that fish, once a week alongside cornbread, kept a family from pellagra, the disease that comes from eating nothing but corn. They weren't chemists. They just noticed the families who ate a little fish stayed well. 20. Boiled cabbage and cornbread. A cheap head of cabbage kept for months in the cellar and filled a pot. Cut in wedges, cooked soft and sweet with a little fatback and salt, then cornbread crumbled right into the pot liquor at the bottom. That liquor is not to be thrown out. A big pot fed everybody twice, once hot, once warmed over. 19. Hoover stew. Named for the president and not as a compliment. Boiled macaroni, sliced wieners, canned tomatoes, whatever beans or corn there was. It wasn't really a mountain dish. The meat in it made it almost a luxury, but it spread everywhere hard times went, and plenty of mountain families ate a version of it. Grateful. 18. Sorghum sop and a cold biscuit. No sugar, no money for it, but there was the sorghum jug. A cold biscuit split open, a spoon of dark syrup poured on. For a lot of children, that was breakfast and supper both. Miners carried cold biscuits pressed together with sorghum in their dinner buckets because it never spoiled. 17. Egg gravy. Different from tomato gravy, worth keeping separate. When the hens were laying, 2 or 3 eggs beaten into a skillet of milk gravy at the end, stirred hard so they set into little ribbons. It stretched 2 eggs across a whole family, poured over biscuits or bread. 16. Cracklin' bread. At hog killing time, the fat rendered down to lard, and what was left in the bottom of the kettle was cracklings, little crisp bits of skin and meat. Nothing got thrown out. Stirred warm into cornmeal batter and baked. It made a bread with crisp, salty pockets that ate like it had meat in it, because it did. 1 hog gave a family cracklin' bread for weeks. 15. Sweet potato pie. The sweet potato was the mountain's insurance. It grew where corn wouldn't and kept all winter in a bed of straw. When there was a little sugar and an egg to spare, it became pie, boiled soft, mashed with sweetening, egg, milk, and whatever spice was in the house, baked in a crust. That pie was Sunday. A child who got a wedge in 1932 remembered it 70 years later. 14. Fried creek fish. A boy with a hook and a can of worms brought home free protein. Little creek fish, horny heads, red eyes, a sunfish if lucky, cleaned on the bank, rolled whole in salted cornmeal, fried in hot grease and eaten bones and all. A mess of little fish turned plain cornbread into a supper with meat on the table, and it cost nothing but an afternoon. The grease has to be near smoking, or the fish soaks it up soft and greasy instead of coming out crisp. 13. Scalloped tomatoes. Old bread earned its keep here. Torn dry bread layered with home-canned tomatoes, a little sugar, salt, and a few dots of grease. Baked till the top browned, and the bread underneath drank up the tomato. Somewhere between a bread pudding and a stew, made from 2 things you already had, and 1 thing you'd have thrown to the hogs. Skimp on the baking time, and the bottom stays soggy. 12. Meat off the land. When the smokehouse was empty, families ate what the woods gave up. Squirrel first, always squirrel, then rabbit, groundhog, possum. A man wasn't ashamed, he was fed. But I have to be honest with you here, because the old way could hurt you. Wild rabbits and groundhogs can carry tularemia. You can catch it just from cleaning the animal with a cut on your hand. Possum, bear, and hog can carry trichinella, a parasite that freezing doesn't reliably kill in wild game. So follow the modern standard, not the old one. Wear gloves cleaning wild game, and if the liver has white spots throughout, bury the animal and don't eat it. Cook every bit of it through to 165 degrees. Not pink, not about done. Done. The old-timers lost people to this and never knew why. We know why now. 11. Tea cakes. The plainest cookie there is. Flour, a little sugar, a little fat, an egg if you had one. Rolled thin and baked soft, and a child coming in from school to a plate of warm tea cakes felt rich. There are people in their 90s today who'll cry telling you about their grandmother's tea cakes, and it isn't the sugar they're crying about. 10. Potato cakes. Leftover mashed potatoes never got thrown out, worked with a little flour and an egg, patted into cakes, fried brown in grease. Crisp outside, soft in the middle. Last night's leftovers made into a hot new meal. Too little flour, and they fall apart in the pan. 9. Turnips. Sown late, up fast, and standing through frost. 1 packet of seed fed you 2 ways. The greens on top and the root below. The root peeled, boiled soft, mashed like a potato with grease and salt. A family with a turnip patch had food in the ground in December when everything else was bare. 8. Crawdads out of the branch. Another boy's job. Every rocky branch was full of crawdads, and a hungry child learned quick there was meat in that little tail. Turn the flat rocks, grab them behind the pinchers, fill a bucket, boil them red. About a bite of meat per tail, sweet as any lobster, and free for the waiting. 7. Black-eyed peas and hog jowl. New Year's Day tradition, still alive in these mountains. It came up from the coast, where they cook it as hoppin' john with rice. But rice doesn't grow up here, so it's just peas and jowl. The luck is a nice story, but the real reason poor mountain families ate it was arithmetic. Dried peas kept all year, and hog jowl was the cheap cut nobody else wanted. Cheap food for the deep of winter, with a little luck sprinkled on top. 6. Baked sweet potatoes in the ashes. The simplest meal there ever was. Bury a sweet potato in the hot ashes at the edge of the hearth and leave it. An hour later, crack the blackened skin, and inside is something so sweet and soft you'd swear it was sugared. The heat just turns the potato's own starch to sugar, right there in the coals. No pan, no pot, no water. A child could cook his own supper while his mother worked. Bank it in the warm ash, not the fire itself, or one side chars while the other stays raw. 5. Cornmeal dumplings and pot liquor. When you boiled a pot of greens or beans, the leftover liquid, the pot liquor, was never waste. It was the best part. Stiff little dumplings of cornmeal, salt, and hot water dropped in to cook through, soaking up everything good that had cooked out of the greens. The poorest supper on the stove, and one of the healthiest, near as doctors can tell now. 4. Stewed rhubarb. Called the pie plant, and nearly every mountain place had a clump by the back step, because it came up first thing in spring when a body was starved for something fresh and tart. Red stalks stewed down with sweetening, eaten warm or spooned over a biscuit, the first sweet and sour thing of the year. But hear this, because it matters. You eat the stalk, and only the stalk. The leaves are poison. An acid in them binds up your body's calcium, and it has killed people. Grandmother knew to cut the leaf off in the garden and leave it lay, without ever knowing the chemistry behind it. 3. Potato soup. The stretch made plain, the meal that took the least and fed the most. A few potatoes, an onion, water, milk if there was any that week, a lump of grease. Boil the potatoes and onions soft. Mash some right in the pot to thicken it. Let the milk carry the rest. 2 or 3 potatoes and a cup of milk fed a whole family a hot supper, and with cornbread crumbled in, nobody at the table knew they were eating poverty. 2. Sugar bread. The plainest sweet on this whole list, and the one that put the most children to sleep happy. A slice of bread or a cold biscuit, buttered if there was butter, greased if there wasn't, and a spoon of sugar pressed into it. That was dessert. It cost a spoon of sugar and bought a smile you'd remember your whole life. 1. Chicken and dumplings. The great stretch, the meal that took the whole art and put it in one pot. One old hen, and it fed 9. When a laying hen quit laying, that was the day she went in the pot. And an old bird is tough, so you stewed her low and slow half a day, till the meat gave up off the bone. That broth was gold. Then dumplings made of nothing but flour, a little grease, and some of that broth, rolled thin, cut in strips, dropped in to cook soft and swell. The dumplings are what stretch it. One old hen won't feed a big family, but one old hen and a pound of flour rolled into dumplings will. Rush the bird and boil her hard, and she goes to rubber and stays there. You keep it barely moving for hours and let time do what heat can't. That's the part that's gone, not the recipe. Anybody can look up chicken and dumplings. What's gone is the knowing that a single hen and a bowl of flour, in the right hands, sets 9 people down to a full supper and sends every one of them away satisfied. My grandmother could look into an empty pantry and see a meal there. That wasn't a recipe. That was a lifetime of doing more with less than anybody should have had to, and she never once let us see it as anything but plenty. Here's my challenge to you. Pick just one. Bake a sweet potato in the ashes of your fire and eat it plain. Beat 2 eggs into a skillet of gravy and see how far it goes. Or make a plate of tea cakes from 4 things in your cabinet and hand one to a child. Before you go, make sure you're subscribed and don't click away yet, because I want to hear from you. Down in the comments, tell me, what did your people make when there was nothing to make it from? What county were they in? What did your grandmother call the meal that got you through the lean week? And has this list made you want to try one of these recipes yourself? Somebody in your family stretched one hen across a whole table once, and I want to know whose. These weren't recipes so much as arithmetic done by women who could make 5 people believe they'd eaten well off of almost nothing. A whole science of plenty out of want. And it's closing down, one grandmother at a time.